So we have our next speaker today. His name is Krish Iyer. He's the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Industry from ShipStation. So Krish focuses on long-term relationships and partnerships between e-commerce merchants and e-commerce marketplaces. So today he will be talking about the shipping battleground for merchants, rates in the cart. I'm going to hand the mic to Krish, and let's take it away.
Okay, thank you. So I live in Stamford, Connecticut, and early this morning I was terrified that I'd get stuck in traffic. I had nightmares about it the night before, couldn't sleep. So at about 5:15 this morning I said, okay, I'm going to go into Lyft, and I'm going to go on ahead and just try to find somebody and see how long, and far away, especially that early in the morning, you don't think of anybody that's going to actually be driving on the road, especially to take someone that far to come in the city. It's about a 45-minute to an hour drive from my house in Stamford all the way up here to Chelsea Piers. So I did that this morning, put it in, and it said 27 minutes. I said, okay, well, I made the right decision. And I did that, and I pressed it, and then all of a sudden it says 6 minutes. Then the drive will be here in 6 minutes, and as we all know, they'll wait for 5 minutes, maybe less. So I was scrambling to get ready. But I think to me, it's interesting because that example shows us exactly why precise and accurate delivery and pickup times are so important. Not just when we're shopping online, but also when we're getting picked up so that you don't forget your shoes or socks or something like that. I'm Krish Iyer, and I'm the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Industry Relations, which is a fancy way of saying that nobody has any real idea what I actually do. But I do that for ShipStation, and you probably see this term Auctane if we talk later. I'll give you the story behind that in full detail, but just know that Auctane is now kind of our umbrella name that we use for ShipStation, Shipping Easy. I'll go over that in just a few minutes here. So a little bit of what I want to cover here is, first off, a little bit about me, Krish, the speaker. This is the one place I know my first name's not going to get butchered, so I'm excited. Little bit about my organization, Auctane. And then I want to talk about the delivery expectation problem. Almost all of us have had problems with shipping, delivery, especially here during the pandemic. I want to talk a little bit about what carriers are doing today and maybe some options that you guys can consider in the cart, especially. And finally, some takeaways for the future. So before I get really started, how many of you have shipped a package recently? How many of you have received a package? Maybe an online order. Okay, it looks like just about everybody. How many people got a late order? They expected it a certain day and got it a different day. Looks like just about everybody. So, okay, temperature check, looks like everybody's had kind of the same pain, same experiences. A little bit about me. So, as mentioned by my intro, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Auctane, typically focused on marketplace relationships. I also serve as the Vice President of the Package Shippers Association, which is a group that lobbies on behalf of package shippers to Congress, USPS, different organizations. And my hometown's Memphis, Tennessee, but I live here in Stamford, Connecticut. A little bit about Auctane. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but between our various brands, have about 1 million merchants and do about 3 billion shipments. We call them fulfillments a year. About 200 billion that goes through our platforms, covering about 19 to 20% of GMV of products sold in North America. Different carriers, different integration sources that we have, all in one in our platforms. We are now owned by private equity, a company called Thoma Bravo, based out of Chicago, and includes some of the brands that are on this screen. Some of you may have heard of Stamps.com, Shipping Easy, ShipStation, other ones that are here in the US and internationally as well. So now let's talk about the problem. This is a retailer, as you can see, selling shoes online. But what do we notice here? You add it to the cart. The second piece of it says, what does it say as far as delivery days? Somebody who's going to make eye contact with me that I can call on. All right, 5 to 7 days. Okay. So if I ordered that today, pop quiz, today's Friday, what day of the week does that really mean that I'm going to receive it? Maybe next Monday, but are Saturday and Sunday transit days? Depends on the carrier. Okay? Depends on the carrier, depends on their policy. So we could be talking about as soon as Thursday, maybe Friday, maybe the following Monday. We really have very little clarity here on what that really means. But we're going to choose that because that's free. But then we see that, hey, for an extra premium, we can get it sooner. So then we're ordering it today here. Right now, what? We're at 11:30. Second day, what does that mean? Okay, Tuesday, who else? Anybody else? Maybe that's Monday, maybe that's Tuesday, maybe that's even Wednesday. The thing is that even that, saying that we're going to pay an extra premium, $16, $17 is almost about 25% of the cost of this item. So we're going to pay a premium, and we still don't know exactly what that means. Even when we say overnight shipping, what does that mean? Does that mean Saturday? Does that mean Sunday? Does that mean Monday? The reality is we really don't know, and this is a major problem. So now let's talk about the expectations. Again, different people had different answers to the idea of what overnight meant, being that it's Friday. Yes, we'll have slides available, by the way. Typical expectations, especially as we know with Amazon Prime and with the advent of 2-day shipping, closer fulfillment centers, most of us say, if we were to give an answer, what is the expectation, is 2 to 3 days. Okay, and that's pretty much the norm now. You can probably get away with 4 to 5 days, especially in the pandemic and if you're doing free shipping. But by and large, we're seeing the 2 to 3 day expectation. But now let's talk about what's the reality. The reality is only 21% of parcels are actually delivered in 2 days. And the average transit time, now again, we have the caveat that this was during the pandemic, but we're still seeing it. We're hearing reports all about, FedEx these days, et cetera, 3.6 days. So expectation was 2 to 3, but the reality is more like 3.6. So again, when we have products that we sell, we have people that may choose an expedited option, there's an expectation and a reality that we're probably not meeting. So let's talk about what the carriers actually give as far as information. How many of you surface transit times or shipping days in transit for your products online? Anybody? Okay. And what do you typically say as far as in the cart, as far as transit days, typically? Okay, so saying it's out for delivery in 2 days, probably typically what the carrier told you the expectation was? Okay, thank you for that. So right now, obviously these are carriers all of us know. I won't say know and love for various reasons, depending on your experience, of course. But the reality is certain services like workshare products, workshare, what do I mean by that? Idea of final mile delivery by the USPS or another entity like that. Typically, the tracking starts to get not as robust for services like DHL e-commerce that injects into the Postal Service, UPS Mail Innovations. So again, that may be the free option, but you really start to break down when it comes to the shipping and transit times. Ooh. Carrier transit times are 33% inaccurate. What do we mean by that? Idea there is that the carrier transit times, like the gentleman who just shared, saying, well, we think it's going to be 2 days, and we may get surprised by the emails. This is happening 33% of the time. A third of the time, the carrier transit times are wrong. Shipping cutoff times, obviously, we all know if we're trying to get products out, cutoff times, the carriers say they want to pick up earlier and earlier in the day. Reality is most of us want that pickup at between 4:30 and 5:30, to get the most packages out the door. But it does mean that that's causing a lot of inaccuracies. And of course, the carriers are really dependent on more of what their process is, not what your process is as far as orders, cutoffs, things like that. So this is what the carriers are doing today with merchants. But what really impacts our transit times? First off, you can see from the image that we have here, the idea is inventory location. So we have a map here for Northern California, that's where the inventory is. But they are advertising the idea that if you order within a certain allotted time, that you can meet a cutoff to get a certain degree of shipping transit time. Okay? Order process. Again, the idea that, hey, if you order within a certain period of time on this date, you can get it there with more precision. That's the idea of what really impacts the transit time. That order process, when you tendered the package to the carrier, whether they're going to actually put it in their stream that evening, or they're going to roll a trailer over to the next day. And of course, the carrier's history and policies. All carriers, especially the major carriers, like to say, well, we deliver to every location, every zip code in the US, but what a lot of them may not tell you is the idea that clearly they're better at some lanes and destinations than others. We typically think of the USPS as king of rural territories and, kind of having a hold on that. We typically think of, a FedEx as business-to-business addresses with a lot of precision. But the reality is not all carriers are the same when it comes to every lane, every destination. But I think you can see from here the shipping costs, the days in transit, very dependent on the idea of where the inventory was when it was processed in the day. But what if you could actually take that information and make it actionable in the cart? We saw the previous cart, the idea, 5 to 7 days, it's Friday, we don't really know what that means. But what if you could give an extra layer of precision? Do you think we would get more orders out the door? Maybe some higher conversions? More peace of mind in reducing where are my order calls? All right? These are the benefits of having better and more precise, granular tracking information. It's an opportunity for differentiation. I know this is being Captain Obvious to say 85% of shoppers want to see more precise delivery dates, on their packages. But we saw from the previous example, if you pick the expedited option, definitely there was a charge there, about 20% of the order price. In reality, shipping costs add typically 15 to 20% on the price of the item. Obviously, based on GMV, that can go up and down. But the reality is that, the reality here is that transit times really do impact that conversion. So before we get into, hey, what is it that we can do, which is not meant to be a commercial for ShipStation, I promise. We do have commercials on television, but this isn't one of them. The other idea is we may want to do this in the cart, but what about the other tools we work with? We had Digital talking about post-purchase experience in the previous session and the idea of how that affects conversion. What if you put really nice transit times into the cart and then gave somebody something like this. How many of us have ever gone to a tracking page and seen something like this? Okay. This tells us absolutely nothing. And it's a frustrating experience. This was actually a real experience I had. I screenshotted it and kept it because I thought it was so poor that it would have been better to frankly give no information at all. I have no idea what carrier this is. I have no idea when the package is going to go into the system and where it really is. And I certainly am not going to track another package knowing that this widget here didn't tell me anything about the previous one. So the idea is you got to have tools for the post-purchase. Again, a lot of discussion here today on post-purchase. Have the tools in post-purchase that complement and talk to things that you want to do in the cart. Okay? So again, trying to have things that complement front end and on the back end. So I know this may seem daunting. How do I put things in the cart with more precision? Do I really have to spend the money on an extra tool or set of tools? But the reality is Magento merchants can do things to add the estimated date of delivery throughout the customer experience. First off, putting it in the listing itself. How many of you put, before you get to the cart, the estimated delivery time and days in transit? Anybody? Very good, very good. Rate shopping. Now, when I say rate shopping, all of us may say the idea that, hey, we want to have the best rates and maybe on our side be able to choose the cheapest or best option. But the reality is you can also give your customers the ability to do that. Especially if you surface different carriers, different options, people can really pick based on the value they perceive of that item when they want to receive it or if they want it free. And being able to do that agnostically across carriers, definitely something to consider. Invest in customer notification technology. Again, we talked earlier from our friends at .digital about the frequency of emails. We want to be able to give good quality tracking events to people from the proactive email tools and the tools that they use to track along the journey. Certainly that's a better customer experience. It's more professional, but it also gives us the opportunity to reduce certain costs, like where is my order calls that you may get to customer service. Average customer service call to resolve an issue is typically about $3.43. So just think that every time you invest in notifying your customer, whether it's SMS, whether it's email, other tools, you're potentially reducing almost $3.50 of your cost and overhead. And ensure that your tools complement each other. We talked a little bit about that, about the post-purchase and tracking. Just want to point out here in the example that we have, this is a Magento merchant. They were able to use some tools. See the precision that's there. Saturday, June 11th, you can see there that you know the exact date it's going to be expected for delivery. That's a good customer experience. So, 3 things to remember about shipping when it comes to the battleground of the cart. First, delivery times. Across carriers, it can vary in quality. Relying just on what the carrier tells you is no longer good enough for your customer. You want to be able to give them better, higher quality information in order to improve your conversion. And that definitely results in the idea that we want to invest in technologies. There are great ones in the Magento store, ones like ShipperHQ, Phoenix Commerce. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that ShipStation, we have some as well. But to be able to push those estimated dates of delivery straight into the cart, something that we definitely want to take a look at. And finally, investing in complementary tools, things around post-purchase, pre-purchase, putting things in the listing itself when it comes to that granularized information around shipping and delivery. So those are my 3 takeaways. And just want to say thank you. Please feel free to connect with me, LinkedIn, And I'll certainly be wandering around today and happy to answer any questions anybody has here now. Okay. Any questions? Anybody?
Please don't be shy now.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So the question came, how do we vet certain carriers? It was a little bit product specific for what we do in ShipStation or the Auctane products. What I'll say is typically we have some historical averages around some of the carriers that inform how we push the transit times into the card. Okay.
All right, any other questions? Going once, going twice.
All right.
Thank you so much, Krish.
Thank you.